What is going on, YouTube? Lamont at large here today. I'm in Lynchburg, Virginia. I'm at the Old City Cemetery, an interesting cemetery to say the least. And I looked it up online and I said, well, I'd like to come and visit. They had a couple of smaller museums with relics from the Civil War, and I'm a pretty big fan of seeing old typewriters and just how things used to look like back in the olden days. However, when I got here, they told me that since they don't have enough volunteers, they weren't opening up the little tiny museums so that I can kind of go inside and take video of. So with that being said, we're still going to tour the cemetery. I hope you find the video interesting. And also, guys, don't forget, Fascinating Graveyard, that is my second channel. Please subscribe. The link will be in the description box below. So let's get to it. This cemetery right here was also known as the Old Methodist Cemetery back in the day. It was established in 1806. Now, this cemetery, even though it may not say in the record books, 3/4 of everybody, about 20,000 graves in this cemetery are black. So I can't really say if this was only known as a black cemetery, but most of the people that are buried here were slaves, and also people that were not slaves that were black. Also, you have a section here that has about 2,200 Confederate soldiers from about, spread out between 14 different states. And you also had people that were poor, could not afford to be buried in the other cemetery here, so they were buried here. So there is a small potter's field, and also people that nobody knew who they were. If you were traveling through back in the old days and you fell ill, you went to the doctor and you died, well, oftentimes people didn't really carry identification. If it's 1830, you don't have an ID, but you know your name. You might have a piece of paper that's some kind of a birth record, but paper only lasts for so long. So when you died, if you said my name is John, but your real name was Fred, well, they would bury you as John. Or if they just did not know your name, they would just bury you and put like a little wooden cross, and you would just be buried here, and that's how that works. You will not see too many of these around in many cemeteries around the country. This is a brick tomb, basically a grave. The person is buried in it, filled with dirt, and then this brick is encased on top. There is no marker for the person that is buried here. The identity is unknown. However, the identity of the man who built it is, and his name was James Edward Franklin Sr., and this was built right around 1900. They surely don't build them like this anymore, and something like this potentially, in my opinion, will last, hundreds and hundreds of years. Right here is the final resting place of Mary Susie Courier. I believe she was 15 years old when she died. She does not have a cemetery marker right here. Back in those days, not everybody had money to afford even a simple stone such as that. Many times people just would use a wooden cross, and then of course the elements of time would, the wood would rot, and a good storm would just blow it away. This right here is an arch that was built in 1925 to commemorate the fallen Confederate soldiers. In 1866, they were disinterred and reburied here in this area. And as you can see, all of these markers right here are amongst the 2,200 or so fallen men in that war. Curious enough, back in those days, women weren't allowed on the battlefield. Today, I'm not 100% sure if they are or not, but you have to imagine somewhere here must be the grave of a woman buried amongst the forgotten names of those men who died. This right here would be a rare case of somebody who did a family genealogy trace and actually found out that they were related to somebody that's buried out here, and they came out here and bought a marker and put it down. You won't see that very often because people don't want to know that they were related to Confederate soldiers, and be it that all of these men that are buried right here probably did not own a slave. Slave owners were very rich. If you owned a slave, you had some pretty good money, and these men, by far and large, probably came from poorer families. Caught in the spider's web, I see. In memory of our little darling Emmert Hamilton Jefferson, son of Emmert and Teresa Jefferson. He died 3 weeks before his second birthday. He's buried next to his father right here, Emmett. He died pretty young himself, in his early 30s. I was thinking Teresa was buried right here, but this is not her grave, so I don't know where she's buried. Maybe they got a divorce. Maybe the death of their son drove them apart. Divorce did happen back in those days. And graves like that, and like the one behind it, very difficult to ascertain the name and the birth and death dates on stones like this. Most stones back in the days were made out of either limestone, sandstone, or marble. And over time, when it rains, sometimes, particularly in cities in the Midwest where factories are, you get a lot of acid rain, and that rain will just rain on a stone, and after decades and decades and hundreds of years, they just become very difficult to read and not legible. Probably it's always best, if somebody could afford it, to always get a gravestone that's made out of either metal or perhaps granite. These are two little girls by the last name of Curl. I can't read the first name. They both died in the 1850s. It's unknown how they passed. Their father was a very prominent builder in Lynchburg here. As you hear that train in the background, talk really quickly about the history of Lynchburg. They actually used to call this place Tobacco Town. That was the economy back in the 1800s. There was large swaths of tobacco fields out here. And it was also home of the second largest Confederate hospital. Of course, the first one being Richmond. And of course, when you see that old Confederate hospital back in the 1860s, you're going to see a couple things. A lot of guys, and hear a lot of screaming. Anesthesia, even though it was invented by then, it was still something that was an imperfect science. So a lot of time, those soldiers, if they got their leg blown off, a lot of them just said, you know what, I'd rather die. I mean, imagine some guys coming to you with a saw that they used to cut a tree down, and he's coming to cut your leg off. I'm going to get more into the history of anesthesia and the inventor of it. He's buried somewhere up in the Boston, Massachusetts, Cambridge area. But anyways, you see these three steel beams right here. This was what used to hold up a shelter for people while they were waiting for the train at the train station out here. They tore it down in 1966, and they took these beams and they went ahead and put them here. There's a swing right here. I'm not really sure why this is here. I don't know, guys. What do you think? Should I go for it? Can you hold 220 pounds? The answer is yes. Right around this spot, right next to where I was swinging like a swinging fool, was the site of Lynchburg's first public hanging. On May of 1829, a man by the name of John M. Jones, he was a slave owner here in the area. He killed George Hamilton on the James River waterfront. Why did he kill him? Well, it was an argument over Jones's lover. I don't know what the argument was because it happened almost 200 years ago, but it was right around here where they hung him. Now, this hanging was didn't go exactly according to plan. He was hung, I believe it was 1830, August 16th, 1830. He was hung, and when he climbed up to the scaffold and he put the hood on over his face, of course, there's a reverend and there people are singing hymns and prayers because they're about to execute this man. When the trap door fell, he went down and hit the ground. The rope broke, right? Oh, a sign from God that this man should not be executed, right? Divine intervention, not according to those people. They wanted that man dead. He was convicted of first-degree murder, and the punishment, of course, was execution. So he has to go up the scaffold again, step by step, again. The rope goes over his neck, and the door goes down. This time it was a complete and rousing success. They actually had his body hanging for an hour. It was a very unpopular execution because of what occurred, and it would be another 30 years before they brought out the old scaffold and hangman's rope again and gave it another go. So this time it was a success. There was no chance of that rope breaking because they made damn sure that rope was going to hold. Anyways, if you see this marble column right here, this column was brought from a bank in town that was built in 1908. They did some remodeling, and they decided instead of these marble columns, they went with some kind of a brick facade. I don't know why. These look way better than brick, but I don't know. They don't build things with such architecture anymore. Everything's just pretty much modern and boring. Just my personal opinion. If you see that little church right there, that is actually a recreation of a church from 1870. It was called the Ivy Church that was in Bedford County. That is a newer construction. It was finished in 2006, and it was built basically by volunteers in the area. However, the materials used in that building were from the Herman Methodist Church, which was demolished some time ago. So actually the materials from that church right there is very old. I would have loved to have shown you the inside of it, but I was kicked out by somebody who rented it for a wedding party. Hopefully their wedding lasts, their marriage lasts a long time. So good luck to those lovebirds over there. Okay, so this right here is the scatter garden. And what this is basically, when you're cremated, people come to this garden and scatter your ashes, and then your name is engraved on a plate and posted right here. This is the other scatter garden, but this time This is for your pets. So your loved ones, your dog, your cat, hamster, gerbil, rat, monkey. Whoever you loved, you would bring them here and scatter their ashes. And let me tell you, some people love their pets like they're their own sister or brother, if not more so. The death of a pet could be very traumatic, to say the least. That is why I choose to not have pets, because I do not want to go through the ordeal of, having to put down a dog or a cat. Plus, I'm allergic. However, that does not stop me from feeding them whenever a stray cat comes across my van. This right here is the Caretakers mini museum, if you will. This was the place where a caretaker of the cemetery would keep all of their tools and what have you. When this cemetery was founded in 1806, there was no caretaker. If you wanted somebody buried here, you dig the hole yourself, or you go hire somebody to go dig the hole. And of course, if it was winter, the ground was too hard, so you have to wait till spring to bury your loved one. So you had to put them in a temporary vault somewhere. I believe in 1866, they finally got somebody as a caretaker in this property, but the caretaker wasn't the best caretaker, because public work crews would still have to come here to take care of the cemetery, prisoners from the local prison. If you see right here, I'm trying to get his best view. That's a pretty fancy horse-drawn hearse. If you were a family and you had some money, you would have your loved one in that hearse right there. If it was a child that passed, a white horse would pull it, and if it was an adult, then it would be a black horse. Now, if you were a working class man, or your family was just poor and you couldn't afford that hearse right there, well, then you're going to be pulled in this, which is basically a regular horse-drawn wagon. And of course, you would have to wait until they took their tools out of the carriage so they could put you in it. So this place didn't always look so nice and manicured. I mean, you can only imagine what it looked like back in the 1870s and the 1880s. This right here is the cemetery office. They are closed now. I was here earlier. However, they did not let me film inside. I wanted to show you a really cool metal coffin in there that had a window that you can watch your loved one's face before they were buried in the ground. And they also had some cool artifacts right there. I wish I had my wallet on me so I could have bribed her with a 20 spots just to do a 1-minute video inside. This right here, this wicker coffin, this is called a cooling coffin. No, they did not use this to bury people. This was actually just used to transport your loved ones when they died. They would transport them to whatever funeral home that you were going to have your loved one's body prepared for burial. But often now they use those wicker baskets, those coffins, for green burials. So across this road right here, this is a pest house. So what is a pest house? Well, the person that worked this house, he was a doctor. His name was Dr. John J. Terrell. He was a Confederate doctor. A lot of Confederate soldiers and just people would come over here. In particular, you would go to a pest house if you had a disease that other people that were around you did not want to catch, whether it be smallpox, tuberculosis, you had breathing problems, you had the flu, pneumonia, all that stuff. And you would come over here to hopefully get better. And sometimes, unfortunately, you would not get better. And I wish I can get inside here. I mean, they let you, ooh, success, guys, success. We're in. It was unlocked. Let's make this quick. I don't want anybody calling the police on me. Wow, I cannot believe that was open. See, guys, you always check doors wherever you go. You never know. This is, of course, an old style wheelchair. I don't know a lot about this place, so I'm kind of like winging it right now. This is what you call on YouTube, totally winging it. This right here is actually, I know what this is. This is an operating table. And the reason why it's next to the window is because that's when they did operations in the daylight, because there was no electricity back in the day. So good old fashioned sunlight was the method of light when they committed did surgeries. And of course you have solution potassium bichloram. Is that anesthesia? Is that what gas that they used? I don't know. Maybe that was basically ether. I'm just guessing, guys. I am not consulting Google on anything right now. I'm just winging it. I'm trying to get this done quickly before they call the police on me. As you can see here, you have different instruments for surgery. There is a key right there. And hey, this is what they used to make incisions. And that is right there, an old scalpel. Look at that. Amazing. Okay, then you have like old medicine bottles. You got some drawings. Would you look at that? Wow, I can't believe they did not lock it. Don't worry, guys, I come in peace. This would be the place where you would lay, and hopefully you would get better. There is an old style checkerboard right there. This looks like a wash basin. All right, there's some old crutches right there. An old shirt. And I believe, don't quote me, this might have been used to drink water. So you would dip that in the whatever well or water you're getting from, and then you would drink from it. This, of course, is an old stove. I'm assuming you would put the wood or the coal or whatever in there, and then that would put the water in there. This rocking chair, this is a chair that if you had breathing problems, for instance, if you had asthma, you would sit in this rocking chair. And if you notice how upright it is, how like there's really no give to it, you're sitting straight up, that would be the position that they would have you in so you can breathe better. And of course, more instruments of surgery, I'm assuming. Those look like forceps. Let's not get into what those were used for. Use your imagination. I do not know if this is an actual skull or not. I am not going to touch it. I do not know. I do not know who that is. I'm going to guess that might be Dr. Terrell. Well, guess what this is? A toilet. Okay, you had to go. And, you know, preferably, I'm assuming this toilet, I mean, they had outhouses back in the day, but hey, if you were so sick that you couldn't get up, I mean, they would just put you right there and you would just go. You go right in the Pest House. And of course, you got another old pair of crutches. Another picture, I'm assuming, of the doctor himself. And there is, of course, some old newspaper print. That is really awesome. I'm glad I got to come in here and show you guys this place inside. And no, I am not taking any souvenirs. I am going to leave this place. I am just fortunate enough that I got to go inside so I could show you guys. And that was totally worth it because that was the main one that I wanted to see the most. So I got to go inside after all. Just made it in time. Wouldn't have want them to see me going in the Pest House. That was well worth the 188-mile drive down here. Anyways, no harm done. Just want to make sure I can get in there so I can show you guys what I'm looking at. I know many of you can't travel, don't get to travel the way I can. And if you can't do that, allow me to be your tour guide at whatever cemetery, crime scene, disaster site that I go to. Anyways, next stop, who knows, West Virginia. I'm on my way. Live, but not live, but still alive by the grace of God. I am Lamont at Large. Thank you for watching. I always appreciate it. Again, guys, don't forget, fascinating graveyard. Fascinating graveyard. I'll see you on the next vlog. Peace out.